Hello everyone, this is THG, aka the Scheme Gamer, and welcome to all new episodes of Flip Throughs. This is episode 29. Be sure to check out all episodes of Flip Throughs on my playlist on my channel. So be sure to check out all new episodes of this series right here, Flip Throughs, along with my other series called Games I've Been Playing series, Season 5, every other Friday on my YouTube channel. So anyway, without further ado, let's get it started. Alright, for this episode right here and all that, we gotta do another old school gaming forum from the early 2000s, which is from April of 2003. And this is another Game Informer magazine that is Game Informer issue, what issue is this? Issue 120 of April of 2003, which had Jack 2 on the cover. And the special preview of Zelda The Wind Waker and Sci-Fi Fiddle Omega Strain, and the killer previews of other games that come out release of that year and all that. So yeah, 2003 was a great year of launching video games and all that from the sixth generation, and bring back so many memories of Steam commercials and reading reviews of all these games that were released coming out for that year. So anyway, without further ado, let's flip through this magazine. So here's the front right here with the Jack 2 cover on it. It says Sony Earth-Shattering Sequel, and with Jack 2 and Sci-Fi Filter Omega Strain online and all that. So yeah, so here's the front right here. Here's the first page. Here's the first page showing an ad for Dark Cloud 2 on the PS2, which is a sequel to the first Dark Cloud game and all that. Only played the first one on that, never played the second one, but the second one is so expensive nowadays and all that. So yeah, there is that. Here's the ad for Autumn Lisa, which was released on the PS2. It's like a street racing game in the cartoony style and all that stuff. And here is the ad and all that for the Evil Dead, A Fistful of Boomstick. I remember seeing reviews of this game back in the day, and my friend Gamer Man Lounge and all that draw a box art for this game right here. And this game right here bring back so many memories. Even though I didn't play at the time and all that, I saw some ads and reviews and all that for this game right here. So yeah, there is that. Here's the ad for Evil Dead, A Fistful of Boomstick on the PS2 and the original Xbox. And here's the ad, one of the best sequels in the Midnight Club series and all that. I remember seeing this commercial for this game as a kid for the PS2 and Xbox. That is Midnight Club 2. I played Midnight Club 1 and 2, both of them really great and all that. Even Midnight Club 3 Double Edition. But this one right here and all that bring back so many memories seeing this commercial and seeing reviews as a kid. So yeah, there is that, Midnight Club 2. And here's the ad for X-Men 2, Wolverine Revenge. And based off the movie and all that, and it's different from the movie and all that. It has its own game right here from PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. Bring back memory watching the X-Men 2 Unite movie and all that as a kid. And the game, it was alright and all that. I like X-Men Origins Wolverine better, but this one was alright at the time. So yeah, there is that. And here's the ad for Red Faction 2, a sequel to Red Faction 1, PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Bring back so many memories as well, seeing the review on X-Play and stuff. Good first-person shooter. And here's the table of contents about the cover story of Sci-Fi Filter on Megatrain, the cover act for Jack 2, the Game Enforcer and all that, which is like a parody of Game Informer, and the King of Route 66, so basically like a Crazy Taxi clone with AP with trucks and all the other stuff. So yeah, there is that. And here's another a former table of context for all the game. And here's the ad for a Black and Bruise on a PS2 and GameCube and all that stuff. Like the arcadey boxy game and all that other stuff is a funny version of all that. So yeah, those are those. And here's the Toon Link and all that preview for Zelda the Wind Waker and all that. So yeah, those are those. And here's the ad for the first Tom Clancy Splinter Cell on PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance, and all that. And I remember so much memories playing the first one and all that stuff. I have it on the original Xbox, but I never really beat it and all that stuff. But by the time I really played with it, it was a really fun self game and all that stuff. So yeah, Splinter Cell 1, it's a classic right there. So yeah, there is that. It says Game of the Year 2. So yeah, there is that. Here's the ad for the editor form, and here's the ad for Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter on the PS2. Here's the Game Informer Spy. It's kind of the photos of talk about the photos of the unbelly of the game entry in the ad for LB Slugfest 2004. Basically like NFL Blitz, NFL initial hits, NBA Jam and all that with baseball and all that. Bring back so many memories as a kid. I played the 2006 version and all that as a kid. So here's the ad for that. LB Slugfest 2004, PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. So yeah, those are those. Here's a page of Dear Game Informer, and here's the ad for RTX Red Rock on PS2. And here's the ad for the GameCube versions of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. It's basically like the PS1 version ported onto the GameCube, and I have those two and all that for the GameCube and all that stuff. And those two versions of the game and all that is so expensive now and all this stuff. So I'm glad I picked those up and all that before the prices go way up and all that years ago and all that. So yeah, there is that. And here's the ad for the GameCube ports of Resident Evil 2 and 3. With the original Leon Kennedy and the Jill Valentine. So yeah, there is that. And here's the Game Informer news. Talk about the N-Gage and all that with like a video game handheld with a cell phone, with what those were popping back in the day. Also Bounce, Sonic and Virtual Board Snowboarding 2, and also previews of the first look of Pikmin 2 and Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube. Here's more stuff. It put the release of the Game Boy Advance SP, and the talking about the adapter and all that, and the ad for a Primal on the PS2, and more Game Informer news and all that. Here's more stuff for the Game Informer news. Let's talk about the video game trivia, Grand Theft Auto Rocks and all that breakdown, and the ad for Star Wars Clone Wars on the Xbox. It was original Xbox at the time before the release on the GameCube and the PS2 later on and all that. So here it is right here. Here's more Game Informer news, and also an ad for Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance with like an expanded version of Sons of Liberty and all that. It was released on the PS2 first, and then later on they released it on the original Xbox and all that. Basically, like Sons of Liberty, expanded version of Sons of Liberty with all the extra modes and all this stuff before we have DLC and all this stuff. So I have the OG on the PS2, but I don't own this version right here and all this stuff. So basically, it's like Sons of Liberty, expanded version and all that with a bunch of missions, bunch of content and all that stuff. So here it is right there. And here's the ad for the cover story of Siphon Filter Omega Strain. And you're gonna release it on the fourth quarter, which is like with this game. It didn't release in 2003, but it released in like 2008 or so on the PS2. So here it is. Here's the ad for a Siphon Filter and the preview of Siphon Filter Omega Strain, which is like take place after the first 3 games on the PS1 and all that, and it took place online and all that other stuff. So yeah, there is that. So here it is right there. And the first Siphon Filter was really great game and all this stuff. Even though I never beat it and all that, it was really good stealth game at the time and all that other stuff. And that's it for the preview of Siphon Filter Omega Strain. And now move on to the sequel. To the sequel from Jak and Daxter 1. That is Jak 2 on the PS2. And it's a reinvented new platformer, like a sandbox world and all that other stuff. Which I still have my copy as a teenager on that when I bought it from GameStop. And I beat it around 2018. And that game is hard and all that other stuff, but I really enjoyed it and all that other stuff. Even though the guns and the missions were really hard and all that other stuff, I still really enjoyed it and beat your way through and all that stuff. So yeah, there is that. And here's a preview of Jak 2. And tell me in the comment below what's your final memories of Jak 2. Have you beat it or not? You still haven't beat it and all that. Leave a comment below. You can steal people field goals and all that stuff, ride them in them and all that stuff. And the story one's more edgier and all that, better than the first one. The first one is so cartoony and all that, like Crash Bandicoot, but this one right here is so edgier and so much more and all that. And that is it for the ad of Jak 2 and all that. Here to talk about the spring preview tour of 2003 for all the game developers and all that other stuff, doing a tour and all that other stuff, and talking about the game preview tour and all that. Play the previous game from the previous year and talk about the previous game of that year in the upcoming year and all that other stuff. And here is the issue and all that, which is called Game Informer and all that. Basically like Mad TV version of Game Informer and all that other stuff. So here it is right there. Flying of the Buttress. So funny. And here it is right there. The Game Life preview tour 2003. Here's the editor form right here, talking about the interviews and all that, and more Game Informer news and all that stuff. Here's the previews of Jimmy Dean, Sausage Party, Piggy Piggy, and Grand Theft Auto Night City. The Game Informers and all the other stuff. Here's the Bikini Baton and Garmageddon and all that, and Secret Access and all that. So much funny stuff and all that. You guys can see it. So much funny names, funny things, and all the other stuff. So funny. And here's the ad for the sequel for the first Zone of Enders, Zone of Enders Second Runner. It's basically like a hash slash robot game and all the other stuff. And coming out in March of 2003. I love the first Zone of Enders and all the other stuff, but I never played this one and all that stuff. So here it is right there. Here's the ad for that. All you Zone of Enders fans out there. Creators of Metal Gear Solid, Kojima. Here's a preview of Enter the Matrix on PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. I beat it on the PS2 back in the day, and beat it on the original Xbox and all that. And playing it now and all that, and it was alright, but Path of Neo was way better than this game right here. But I still really enjoyed it and all that other stuff. So yeah, there is that. Here's a preview of Enter the Matrix on PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC. Here's a preview of Deus Ex 2 Invisible War on Xbox and PC. Here's Unlimited Saga on the PS2. The preview of that. Here's Pitfall Harry, which later renamed Pitfall The Lost Expedition on PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. And here's the ad. Here's a preview of Project Gotham Racing 2. The sequel to it on the original Xbox, which came out the upcoming year. And also Red Dead Revolver as well and all that stuff. So before Red Dead Redemption and all that, we have Red Dead Revolver and all that. So here are those. Here's the more previews of games with Driver 3, PS2, Xbox, and PC, then released on the GameCube, and Splashdown 2 on PS2 and Xbox as well. And here are more previews of the release on the GameCube, Dungeon Dragon Heroes on PS2 and Xbox. It's like a Diablo clone, and Gladiator on the PS2 and Xbox and GameCube and all that. And here are more previews of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance for the Game Boy Advance, and Elder Scrolls 3 Blood Moon, which is like an expanded pack of Morrowind, and also Tool Slider on the GameCube. And here's the more preview of games: Lost Kingdom 2 on the GameCube, Man of Fire Vietnam on Xbox and PC, and Hulk, based off the crappy 2003 movie, PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, and Starsky and Hutch, based on the TV show and all that. Here is the folder file and all that other stuff to show you the preview of more preview games: Mega Man Network Transmission, and Army Man Sergeant War on the GameCube, Hunter Reckoning Redeemer on the original Xbox, the Hunter Reckoning War on PS2, which is like the remake of the first game on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Freestyle Metal X, Urban Freestyle Soccer, and XGRA. But the Mega Man Network Transmission bring back memories and all that stuff. You know, it wasn't a great game, but I have so many memories playing it for a little bit back in the day. So yeah, there is that. And here's more gifts: Speed Kings on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, and Backyard Wrestling. And also add for a horrible fight game on the original Xbox from the creators of Mortal Kombat, that is Tile Fang Festival Lotus on the original Xbox, which I played back in the day. It was a really horrible fighting game and all that stuff. So yeah, there is that. Here's the ads for that. Here's all the page for the reviews and all that, and here's the review and the preview of Zelda: The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Back in then, the us fan, when it first came out and all that, we didn't like the cartoony Link and all that. As we were getting older, and time go on and all that, we like the game now and all that, and we really appreciate it for the new style of Zelda. So yeah, there's that. Here's the review of reviews and all that stuff about people and all that. And the reviews of Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Yeah, beat the whole game and all that with Gamer Man Lounge and all that. Phenomenal game and all that. Here's the PS2 Tenchu game, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven. Great Tenchu game and all that. Played back in the day and all that. And such ninja self game and all that. And also the ad for Def Jet Vendetta before Def Jet 5 in New York. I still have my GameCube copy of it. Bring back so many memories and all that. DMX was a GOAT. Rest in peace to DMX and all that. So here it is. Here's the reviews of both of these games. Especially Def Jet Vendetta. Def Jet Vendetta was a shit back in the day as a kid, and even now and all that. I still have my middle school copy of this game on the GameCube. So yeah, there is that. And here more reviews of Dynasty Warriors 4 and Splinter Cell, World Series Baseball 2K3, High Heat 2004, and MVP Baseball 2003. Here more baseball games: All-Star Baseball 2004, Olympic Slugfest 2004, LMB 2004, and the PS2 quickies of Winning Eleven 6, Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels of Roses, Fex, King of Route 66, basically like a Crazy Taxi clone with some APT trucks and all that other stuff, 18-wheeler trucks and all that, MotoGP 3, and Final Fantasy Origins on the PS1. And here's the game preview of, here's a review of Legend of Zelda Wind Waker on the GameCube. Phenomenal Wind Waker game, especially the Wii U and all the other stuff, and it's on Nintendo Switch Online for the Nintendo Switch 2 and all that. So phenomenal game. So here's that, the game of the month of Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I remember seeing commercial for this game as a kid and all that, being in it as an adult and all that other stuff, like a couple of years ago, around like 2015. Phenomenal Zelda game. Even though I don't like the same part, there's so annoying parts in the game and all that stuff, but other than that, phenomenal Zelda game as a kid and now. So yeah, there is that. Here's the GameCube reviews of Summoner, Gods Reborn, and Jeff Vendetta, and also make the cut, the $5 off of the Atari 1001 joystick. So many coupons and all that other stuff about the training your Game Boy Advance to get 30 game bucks and all the other stuff. Like back in the day, GameStop, not what it is now, was so popping back in the day, early 2000s. From GameStop, Falkland, Babbage's, and so much more and all that. So here it is. Bring back so many memories and all that other stuff. Get like deals and all that other stuff. And you train your games to get like game bucks, to get like new games and all that. That was an article thing back in the game. The games that you don't want, you're training in to get like sword credit and all that other stuff. To get more games into games you play in your collection and all that stuff. So here more GameCube reviews of Red Faction 2, the Sum of All Fears based off the movie, LB Slugfest 2004, the GameCube version of OG Resident Evil 2, and the OG Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. And here's the Xbox reviews of Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which is like a terrible SimCity Jurassic Park clone. Pro Racer Driver. And here's Tao Feng, Fist of the Lotus. All-Star Baseball 2004, High Heat 2004, Red Faction 2, World Series Baseball 2003, LB Slugfest 2004, ATV Quad Racing 2, MVP Baseball 2003, and the original Sims on the OG Xbox. So here's all the Xbox quickies and all that. Here's the PC reviews and all the quickies of Command Conquer General, Master Orion 3, 1503 AD The New World, IGI 2, and Highland Warriors. And here's the Game Boy Advance reviews of Lufia, Ruins of Lore, and Pokemon Ruby Sapphire, which is Gen 3. Gen 3 was the best in the Pokemon series, next to Gen 2 and all the other stuff. I still have my Sapphire copy I had as a kid and all that. And also the ad for Mega Man and Bass on Game Boy Advance. Celebrating his 15th anniversary and releasing the Mega Man NT Warrior anime on Kids WB back in the day. Bring back some memory watching that show. Here's more reviews and all that. Super Puzzle Fighter 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dungeon Monsters, All-Star Baseball 2004, and Golden Song: The Log Cave, which is a sequel from the first Golden Song on the Game Boy Advance. And also GameStop.com and all that. They show you all the ads so that you could like for example, the pre-owned PS2 system with the control with the free pre-owned Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1 game, and other sales back in the day and all that stuff. Back then it was so expensive and all that. It's still expensive now, but it's still really expensive and all that other stuff is still. So yeah, so here it is. Bring back so many memories. Here talk about the pre-owned Xbox and all that, and all the prices and all that other stuff. And here's to pay for the subscribe to the Game Informer and all that other stuff. Which back in the day, my mom, I used to sign my name and all that, and I used to send in the mail and all that, and my each and every Game Informer issue come in the mail after I came home from school and all that. So yeah, there is that. $24.98 was back then and all that. So many memories and all that. So yeah, there is that. Here's the charts and all that other stuff. Here's your Richu Archives of April 2003. Test Drive, Super Monkey Ball 2, Enter the Matrix, Doom 3, and Malice. They talk about all the new releases and all that. You can pause it if you like. Here's Secret Access on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube and all that. It shows basically like cheat codes for all the games and all that other stuff. So here it is right there. You want to pause it if you like. You want to get all the cheat codes and all that. You can pause it if you like. Bring back so many memories and all that. Every time, because before there was the internet was popular and all that, you have to read like one of the Game Informers and all that stuff. If you have games, if you have and all that, have like cheat codes and all that stuff. So yeah, bring back a lot of memory before we had the internet and all that stuff. Here's a classic GI, Game Informer, and all that stuff from the 90s and all that stuff. Here's Kyo Flying Squad on Sega CD, Wing World on the Sega Genesis, Mario Super Picross on the Super Nintendo PS1 for Dead or Alive, and Adventure Lolo on the NES. Classic games and all that other stuff. Even though I played the Dead or Alive 1 Ultimate on the original Xbox, bring back a lot of memories. So yeah, those are those. And here's talking about the secret tips and tricks on the Adventure Lolo game and all that stuff. Here is all the figures and all that other stuff. Talk about the colors on the PS2, Mario Party E-Reader card game and all that. Final Fantasy X2, Tiny B controls, Devil May Cry figures, and Mad Magazine and all that. And here's an ad for Magic the Gathering Online. People still play Magic Gathering to this day and all that stuff. So here it is right here. Here's the ad for our IGI-2 Covenant Strike. And certainly, last but not least, to end it off this episode right here, we end it off with a bang. That is the ad for Capcom for the STK2 EO, which is released on the GameCube and the Xbox. And the Xbox version, you can play on Xbox Live, you can play online with people and all that. Basically, EO, basically like the easy version of the game and all that stuff, just like the original on the PS2 and all that other stuff. So yeah, I had the first one on PS2 and all that other stuff, but the EO on the original Xbox and the GameCube and all that, it's the expanded version of that and all that other stuff. So yeah, Capcom STK2 is a classic, and no question about that. So yeah, there is that. So that's it for my flip throughs of Game Informer issue 120 of April of 2003. So yeah, there is that. So that is it, you guys, for this all new episode of Flip Throughs. Tell me in the comments below what's your fond memory of this issue right here, or all the Game Informers issues that you had as a kid, and what's your fond memories of this issue. So make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Want to follow coming up for my upcoming videos, check out my Facebook fan page. The Facebook fan page will be in the description down below. And I'll see y'all next time with another video. Thank you very much, and goodbye.